Hello, hello. Welcome back to another session of Tabnine Office Hours. If you are new here, hello. My name is Chris Good. I am the Director of Product Marketing here at Tabnine, and we're excited to have you here this week. And if you are not new and you're a repeat watcher or viewer, it is great to have you here again. For new folks, if you have not been here before, this is a interactive demo session, right? We do have a plan and an agenda, but we, the greater me, welcome any question. Tough questions, the tougher the better. So feel free to introduce yourself in chat and throw any questions that you might have in there. It is just me today, so I will do my best to monitor this chat the best I can. So without further ado, let's get cracking. Let me pull up this deck here. Awesome. All right, so you are all here. We all know AI is here as well, right? And Gartner's forecasting that adoption will rise even more rapidly this year than it has in previous years, of course. And they're saying by 2028, 75% of software engineers will use AI code assistants. And that number is up from 10% in early 2024, right? I truthfully think that's not even accurate, right? I think that is an understatement of what's actually happening here. I think adoption is moving at a much more rapid pace than we're even forecasting, right? And that's not really surprising because AI is fundamentally changing software development. And the productivity gains for using AI code assistants for engineering teams have been incredible. And that's regardless of what tool you're using, right? Whether it's a AI code assistant or a generic LLM, like a plain chat GPT out of the box, these solutions do have real value. And they are helping engineering teams deliver faster. And specifically at Tabnine, the increase we've seen our customers come to expect ranges from 30 to 50% increase in general productivity across the full set of tasks that constitute the SDLC. And by 2028, Gartner's also reporting that 60% of enterprise operations will be supported by these AI agents. And for enterprise engineering leaders, the performance quality of these AI agents is their most important consideration factor. Excuse me, when deciding to select a vendor, right? And let's talk about sort of these real world blockers that these teams are facing when they're trying to adopt these AI agents across the SDLC, right? First, there's no visibility, right? So you don't know what agent is referencing or what the agent is referencing, or worse, what it's ignoring, right? And that's a governance and debugging nightmare. The second is that there's no alignment with these tools, right? These tools move very fast, but often in the wrong direction, especially when they're doing things autonomously or without a human in the loop, right? It might violate your architecture or your security policies, or just not complete your definition of done. And the third is there's no currency, right? Your code base changes every day, and most models don't keep pace, which means suggestions are outdated before they even hit the IDE. The fourth piece here is going to be a lack of consistency, or should I say no consistency. One team's agent behaves and another's doesn't. And that inconsistency leads to these fragmented standards and unpredictable quality. And then finally here, there's no safety net, right? So every incorrect suggestion becomes rework or risk or silent failure in production, none of which scales. right? So what makes Tabnine different? It's really going to start with our context engine. So unlike these generic AI tools, Tabnine's agents aren't guessing, right? They're grounded in your actual real-time code base, and they understand your architecture. They understand your style guides. They understand your testing patterns. They understand your way of building software. So that means that the code they generate isn't just plausible, it's aligned with your standards, it's validated against your guardrails, and it's delivered in a way that your developers can trust and adopt. And this is what we mean by enterprise grade AI, right? It's not just fast, it's controlled, it's governed, and it's performant. Because scaling AI without trusting control, that's just scaling chaos. And with Tab9, you get the speed of AI without compromising the integrity of your entire code base. And what we like to say here is that any agent can write code. Ours earn your developers' trust, right? And that's due to us being controlled, right? Us being grounded in your code base, and Tab9 being secured. So let's move back a little bit. Let's talk about where we've been and where we're going from an industry here. So I think that's going to help sort of shape our understanding of what's to come, um, and it can only help, right? So all AI capabilities are rapidly evolving, right? It feels like every month we see something new that's being rolled out into the market, whether it's here at Tab9 or it's in general, right? And Tab9's continually been at the forefront of this emerging space. So starting all the way back in 2018, we're actually the inventor of this and creator of this entire category. That's when we released our first ever AI-based code completion model, and that was for the Java IDE. We were also called Codota back at that time. From there, in 2019, LLMs emerged, and well, to the public really for the first time. And of course, we were all probably not really aware of them yet. No one really paid attention to LLMs until Chat GPT or Chat GPT exploded in popularity in like late 22 or 21. But with the emergence of LLM tech, we started to expand our code completions model to cover more languages across all major IDEs. And then the code completions got even better. And in 2022, we got full function, full line, snippet, and block code completions. And then 23, we launched our AI chat agent. And that let you use natural language to do code generation through chat. And in 2024, we launched our first iteration of the context engine, developing that local IDE context and global context. And 2024 also saw us launch these human-in-the-loop AI agents for every step of the SDLC, right? So this is what we've built already for you today, right? We have a full set of these AI agents for every step of the SDLC. And these agents help you accelerate and simplify the entire software development process. They can help you plan, create, document, test, review, maintain, refactor, fix code. And today you can use all of these agents directly in your IDE like a pair programmer out of the box. No waiting list or beta you have to join. And you can use these to assist you with each of these steps along the SDLC. And we'll show a nice lengthy demo here at the end of all of these agents in action. So do not worry, that is coming, just going to be down the pipeline here a little bit. So where are we going as an industry here, right? AI-enabled software development is going to be able to autonomously execute more and more and more tasks over time, right? Theoretically unlocking more and more value for your business. And Tab9 is really going to be your perfect partner along that journey. Now, you may have seen videos this past year of Mark Zuckerberg on the Joe Rogan podcast. Whether you love Joe Rogan or you hate him, there's something really neat that Zuck said. And that was that the AI engineer is already here in 2025. Now, I don't believe that's true for the enterprise. We don't believe that's true for the enterprise here at Tabnine. And literally any enterprise engineering leader I speak to also doesn't believe that's true. So I'm not entirely sure what he was talking about there, but what we do agree is that with them is that the technology has potential and it will continue to improve and evolve and grow. And eventually it will deliver some form of what many of us in our minds and in industry are calling an AI engineer, right? And what we imagine is one. But this isn't happening tomorrow. It's not happening this year. It's not happening next year when forecasts on when it will happen range from as near as 5 years away to multiple decades. The truth is, if anyone can actually tell you that they can accurately predict when something like a fully autonomous AI engineer will emerge, that is a statement that you folks should take with a grain of salt, myself included. I don't know when it's gonna when this technology is going to emerge, right? Uh, but someone telling you that they have a for sure idea and it's going to happen this year or next year is I wouldn't trust them. So we've grounded ourselves in looking at what's actually happened, right? So let's take a look at where we actually are, and where we are today is transitioning from excuse me, an AI coding assistant to this semi-autonomous human in the loop AI agents for specific tasks and capabilities in the SDLC for these mature engineering enterprise teams. But we before we even get to true agentic AI for software development, excuse me, especially one that a mature enterprise engineering team can actually trust and use, there are some things that need to happen, right? Agentic AI needs to use deep organizational insights. And for that reason, and the reason for, I should say, the reason for that is uh, there was this number of independent researchers. Get Clear is a great study that came out of this, right? But it was observed that in some cases, in teams, as the adoption of AI generated code rose, so did the number of pull requests. And in some cases, that meant that there was this massive amount of rejection at code review. But why would that be the case? AI clearly knows to code. It knows the programming languages. The answer really lies in your organization itself. So if I ask the number of, well, I can only see 35 of you right now in the room that are live on air right now. But if I ask you all a specific engineering assignment, or give you guys a specific engineering assignment, let's say to build me a REST API, or to integrate some REST API in this current app that I have, or project. The issue is that you'll probably give me 35, maybe 36 or 7 different answers. Now the problem is that they're actually all correct, right? But the only one that really can be used, or that's going to make it into production, is the one that's going to match your expectations and guidelines and standards internally at your organization, right? It's the only one that's going to make it past code review. Now, working with an LLM, it's like hiring a very well-trained software engineer off the street. And we're talking a generic LLM, not Tabnine. These generic LLMs, they know the O'Reilly textbook answer to every single coding problem out there, right? But they don't know how your organization specifically does things. So at best, they might propose to write a new function or an existing function that already exists, increasing that tech debt. At worst, they could propose changes that break your corporate policies, that adversely affect your application. Um, the list goes on, right? And even something as simple as like, oh, well, it's just a policy. How much downstream negative effect could that have? Uh, I have some time spent in the cybersecurity space, and one of the areas that I focused on was compliance, right, and licensing and proper use of licensing. And that's one of those things that you don't really think about. It's not the sexiest stuff to care about or the most exciting stuff to monitor, but the implications of using or improperly using improperly licensed code in your production environment can be catastrophic. Not just talking about a slap on the wrist, but right the remediation work that can go into having to fix something that is so deeply nested in your production environment. Just something that you if you can avoid, it's best to do so, right? So when you combine the inherent knowledge and capabilities within an LLM with the right understanding of your team, you fix this problem, right? So it's really all about layering the right level of context with this LLM or LLMs and AI technology that delivers that 1-2 punch. And we'll show you later how exactly we get there. Now, to get from an AI chat assistant to an AI code assistant to a autonomous AI engineer, and along the way, agentic AI that you can trust, that we can trust collectively. There's two big things that need to happen that we need to deliver on as an industry. The first is agentic AI needs a comprehensive understanding of company knowledge and standards. And the second is that engineers need to have absolute control on a task level basis over the AI scope, behaviors, and decision as it works, right? So it is a hell of a time to be an engineer. Exciting, thrilling, even. But it's also very, very challenging for these folks. Um, and for engineering teams, specifically in the enterprise and in these highly regulated, privacy conscious industries. Many of you have a mandate to adopt AI technology to increase efficiency and all these other nice things, but you also have to adhere to internal policies. And frankly, AI solution providers keep claiming that they all do the same thing. But the proof is in the pudding here, as you'll find with Tabnine. When you actually do a trial or POV with us, you'll see we're likely one of the few that actually tell you what the capabilities really are and can deliver on them. And won't make you sign up for a beta for agents that we said we've launched. But I'm done throwing shade and I digress. What I'd like to offer you is some perspective, right? So as you undertake this journey evaluating AI and deploying AI agents at your enterprise, we're really going to be your partner along the way. So bear with me a little bit longer. We'll get to the demo that I know you folks came here for. And again, for folks that are new here or just joining the stream, this is an interactive session. So feel free to post any questions you may have in the chat here. And just send a little message so you folks can, if that chat is hidden, that might send a little notification to make it appear. Excuse me. All right. So moving on here. So we all know what the issue now is with LLMs, right? And generic AI code assistants and generic agentic AI software development. And the real issue is that they lack context and they give you generic answers as they generate more code and more tech debt. And using any of them today requires you to trade off between privacy, protection, and performance now, right? Or you have to force your team of engineers to adopt a new IDE, a new way of doing things and operating, right? And we don't believe here at Tabnine that you need to make that decision. With Tabnine, we eliminate the need to trade off between privacy and performance and protection because you can get it all here with Tabnine, right? And the way we deliver on that is using powerful LLMs, layering on our advanced context engine for personalization, and combining all of that with AI agents that are fully human in the loop, right? So it gives you complete control over all of the behavior, all of their actions, and it keeps your engineers in the pilot seat because these are not co-pilots. They are your agents. You should have full control over everything that they do, right? And we believe that wholeheartedly here at Tabnine. So let's talk about some how to address, I guess, some barriers to enterprise AI adoption, right? And the first is protecting your organization from the risk of IP infringement. So historically, the IP liability present in LLM training data has been akin to Schrodinger's cat, right? It is both. It both is and isn't alive. And in that sense, the IP liability both is and isn't present. And organizations using AI already haven't been able to look in the box, right? They haven't been able to look in the box. But whether you want to or not, it's time to look inside. And we did. And the cat is mostly free of IP liabilities. So that is a good thing. And that's an important thing to note and share with your legal teams because nearly 90% of survey respondents for the 2025 RBC CIO survey reported that they're adopting AI into their processes by the end of 2025. And their biggest concern for nearly 40% of these respondents was copyright infringement. So we want to share our expertise with you in this area. We've worked a lot with organizations that share this concern. We've worked with a lot of organizations that share this concern. And we've helped engineering teams navigate these highly restrictive AI policies and can even provide teams that have legal policies banning the use of LLMs outright with a compliant pathway to adoption. But here's the important figure for you to ground yourself on. In the study by CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, from last year, they looked at all the most popular LLM models and studied the frequency of their generation of code snippets that had a strikingly, they called it a striking similarity score on a benchmark they created called a LICO eval. Now, and that's used to license protected code. So what they found was that the frequency of this occurring was between 0.88 and 2.01%, right? So what that data can tell you is that if you're using a third-party model from a reputable provider, the risk of IP liability is quite low, and that's good, right? However, you don't just need to rely and bet the farm on that, right? Because Tabnine offers the most comprehensive approach to copyright and an IP compliance in the in the category. Oof, brain fart there. So we do this in 3 ways, right? Now this should be a GIF. I go through this weekly when I upload slides in the StreamYard. These GIFs are not working. I should know better by now. But you'll see this demo or this GIF here in the demo in action, which I'd argue is even better. So the first we have is provenance and attribution, right? And it's this capability in Tabnine where we check generated code from any LLM that you're using against publicly visible code. And if that code flags a match, or if there is a match, it gets flagged and we reference the source and the license for the code, right? So that makes it really easy to decide if that code meets your specific policies. And coming really, really, really soon here, we're going to be able to take that decision out of the hands of the individual developer, and we can set that through the admin console. right, as organizational governance for your AI policies. So you'll be able to determine the license types that you find compliant and the ones that you don't, and suppress the ones that you don't from ever entering your code through AI. So we're talking about scalable guardrails across your entire organization when it comes to compliance. That's huge. Now, if that's not good enough for you, we also offer uh, a completely IP safe LLM for our most sensitive customers, right? And that meets the requirements of teams with really the highest standards of IP compliance. But we find that with provenance and attribution, with our other security and privacy features, that folks really don't need to use that model. You can still get the performance and accuracy of the llamas of the world and the GPTs of the world, but again, without sacrifice of privacy and protection. And that we're also the only LLM provider on the market that exposes our full set of underlying training data as well. And you can access all of that through the Tabnine Trust Center. And I'm happy to share that with you folks. Now, of course, capping it all off is we also offer contractual protection, right? And that's done through indemnification for enterprise customers. So really there is no need to worry about privacy, protection, or security here with Tabnine. So there's one question here, and I'll jump in and answer this. When Tabnine contributes to or generates portions of code through its AI-powered suggestions, who retains ownership of that output? Is the resulting code considered the sole property of that developer or the organization using Tabnine? Does Tabnine or Tabnine or any third party retain any claim or license over the assisted code outputs? That is a great question. I was trying to say a clever way of answering this would be a bunch of no's for all of this. So starting at the top, Tabnine, the developer, retains ownership, right? Nothing ever leaves. Let's say like an on-prem installation, nothing ever leaves your developers or that Tabnine ecosystem. And I'll show you some graphics and visualizations as we move through this demo here, but nothing ever leaves that Kubernetes cluster, right? Everything is self-contained. There is no code is ever used for training data. There is a zero data retention policy. So everything, again, is specific to your organization, is owned by your organization, stays within your organization's ecosystem, is not used to train Tabnine or any other third-party models. It is fully maintained and owned by the organization and that developer. Great question, though. Feel free to keep them coming. Now, moving forward here, the second thing that you need to do is you need to personalize the output of AI generation to fit your organization's context. And this is critical, very critical, because generic systems can generate code, or can a generic system generate code for enterprise grade challenges? It's not really I guess in this case it is a open-ended question here, but the short answer is no, they can't. And this study from George Mason University took a look at that, right? And what they found is that generic AI code assistants, such as a Copilot or a Codium, really struggled, or Windsurf, excuse me, really struggled with these hard challenges. So they found usability issues in aligning Copilot's code with real-world tasks. And they noted inefficiencies with complex environments, like the ones that we all run into and operate in every day. And specifically, Codium struggled with significantly hard problems across all categories, with an overall success rate as low as 13% for hard problems, which is not great. So let's break this down. This is how we solve those problems for you today. Um, then we'll take a deep dive at this whole visualization here, because I think this is really captures what makes Tabnine uniquely enterprise grade in the realm of AI software development. So at the center of this platform, right, is Tabnine's context engine, the brain behind everything we do, right? And unlike black box models that make guesses based on outdated generic data, Tabnine's context engine ensures that every AI action, whether it's generating code, reviewing it, or validating it, is grounded in your real world context. And here's how it works, right? So we have multi-layered context ingestion, right? We're not looking at just the code in your open file. We're drawing from your entire workspace, your Git repositories, project documentation, Jira issues, terminal outputs, uh, knowledge bases, architecture diagrams, right? Images as context. Then we have semantic and vector memory, right? And these two types of memory work together to ensure this precision, right? We extract relevant entities like functions, APIs, dependencies, and we create a live, ever evolving knowledge graph, right, of your system. And this lets us reason about what exists and how it works together, right? The way I like to think of this is like those old detective boards that you see with all of the pictures and different lines of string going across that connect all the different details. That's sort of like these knowledge graphs, right? And as you code, and you build more Tabnine in real time updates and connects those relationships, provides that context. And again, that lets us reason about what exists and how it all works together. So the last piece here is this sort of this context prioritization and assembly, right? And this is what separates us from these generic tools. We don't throw everything into the LLM and say, there you go, and hope it sorts itself out. Instead, our engine dynamically assembles this precise, enriched content package or context package and aligns that with the task at hand, whether it's a code suggestion, a test plan, or documentation. So why does that matter, right? Because in an enterprise environment, your code changes daily. Your architecture is layered and interconnected and complex, and your security and compliance and performance standards are non-negotiable, right? So Tabnine's context engine ensures that our AI respects those boundaries. So you get speed and efficiency without sacrificing trust and quality and security, right? So at the bottom here, you can see the agents, right? This is where it all sort of comes together, right? So you have Tabnine's AI agents to generate, test, review, fix, maintain, refactor, soon to be edit, which is very exciting. That is that multi-file, multi-step flow that I think a lot of you folks have seen, that the market's sort of been googly-eyed at, right? They're all powered by this rich real-time context, right? So every output is policy aligned, it's architecture aware, and it's grounded in the systems that your team actually works in. Now, let's see here. We have another question. Is it possible to deploy Tabnine in a fully on-premise or private environment without relying on Kubernetes? What installation methods or deployment architectures do you support in such cases? Virtual machines, Docker containers, bare metal. What specific security controls and data isolation measures are available for non-Kubernetes deployment? This is a good question. Kaula, I hope I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. So it is So let me back it up here. You can deploy Tabnine in a handful of ways, right? You can do on-prem, SaaS, VPC, and air-gapped. As far as my understanding goes, it is all packaged and has historically been ran off of Kubernetes. I can take a let me take a pending for you. This is a good question. And ask our team about VMs, Docker containers, bare metal. Um, that will also help me give you more information on if that is possible, what measures are available for those non K8 deployments. And your subsequent question. But another great question. Just because I couldn't answer this one fully doesn't mean you shouldn't keep asking them. So I appreciate the interaction there. So let's keep on moving on, and we'll talk about personalizing Tabnine, right? Let's talk about RAG. What is Retrieval-Augmented Generation? Why is it important? And I apologize, I can't see all of your faces here, so I don't know how many of you actually know about this fully, but we'll keep this section quick and we'll breeze through it, right? So RAG basically gives you the output and intended effect of fine-tuning without having to perform fine-tuning. And it solves one of the criticisms of LLMs, even fine-tuned LLMs, when it comes to coding, and that the output of these LLMs, the output that these LLMs produce is out of date, right? And this is how it sort of works with a stick figure diagram, right? When you make a query into Tabnine, this guy here is asking how to build a REST client to call the Acme services layer. Now, instead of that going straight to the LLM and it spitting a generic response, what happens first is that query gets sent to our retrieval system. And then it goes into reg documents that we've created through indexing. And that query is rewritten and enhanced prior to ever being sent to the LLM before generating a response. Now, there's two ways that we do RAG here, right? There's semantic memory, and that basically uses a semantic understanding of the code or code base to retrieve semantically relevant entities into the inference context, right? And this is language specific. So we use language servers here to analyze the project and create an in-memory representation of the semantic information. Now, the second way we do this is through vector memory, right? So in this case, we create documents that are retrieved from code sources and non-code sources. And this text is then chunked into model digestible pieces. And we create numerical embeddings for each chunk and then load these chunks into a vector store, right? And then that vector space is updated periodically to reflect changes in your code. Now, if we're trying to do this through fine tuning, right? Training your LLMs on your code base, you would have to run your fine tuning process on an hourly or by the minute basis. If you've ever fine tuned or tried to fine tune a model before, you know that's really, really, really hard. I would not want to be the person tasked with that responsibility. Right. It's laborious. It is resource exhaustive. And as you'll find here, I don't think that the juice is worth the squeeze. There's very specific use cases, or I should say edge cases, for when you want to fine tune an LLM. And we'll talk about that here later on. But what this lets you do is expose, right, using semantic and vector memory lets you expose best practices and make code discoverable and encourage code reuse, as well as control the output of the LLM so that it really fits your organizational context, right? So here is sort of a better example, I should say, of exactly how that occurs, right? You're going to use a question or a prompt in the IDE plugin, and then standalone questions hitting that similarity and semantic search, right? Then it's going to go into the vector DB. It's getting our retrieval documents and pushing all of that information that's contextually enhanced into an LLM or the LLM that you're using. And then boom, you've got a relevant code suggestion. And obviously it's not that simple. There is a lot of secret sauce on the back end at Tabnine that makes us who we are, right? But we can't share everything we can do. Now, this is basically how we control the quality or increase the quality of AI code recommendations through personalization, right? And there's 4 levels of context. We have our local context awareness, connection to your code base and knowledge bases, coaching based on your standards, and then customization of that underlying model as needed, right? That fine tuning. So starting at the first level of customization, or of personalization, I should say, context awareness, we have local code base awareness, right? So this is all the data points that we look at, and there's about 15 of them. So we have current files, open files, current selection, imported libraries, compiler syntax errors, terminal, other project files, project metadata, Git history, conversation history, connected repositories, and also other sources of information, right? Then we have connection, right? So this lets you connect Tabnine to your code and knowledge bases, right? So it includes every any Git-based repository and systems like Jira, which then which allows AI to leverage your existing work and data to deliver better recommendations, again, without sacrificing privacy. And then when you get into coaching, that's sort of that third pillar here. That's when you can get explicit guidance, or you can give explicit guidance on how Tabnine operates, right? You can control how Tabnine behaves, right? And coaching operates in the pull request as well as the IDE. So Tabnine is going to be generating code that complies with all of your standards, right? And Tabnine's code review agent, or coaching agent, excuse me, enables customers to really codify their institutional knowledge, right? So think accepted standards for software development, unique best practices, corporate policies into rules that can be applied at code review, at the pull request, or within the IDE. You provide the parameters you'd like to see your code comply with in plain language, right? And Tabnine converts that text into a comprehensive rule, right? So when your developers submit a PR, right, or they're going to submit a PR, they can check that code and that PR against your set of rules. It'll flag deviations and offer guidance and suggested edits to fix those issues, right? And this is huge. This allows you to codify and augment your developers, your best engineers, code reviewers' knowledge, and make it on demand for every developer at your organization who's using Tabnine, right? So it's those scalable guardrails and control that's organization wide, which is really, really, really important, especially with these mature enterprise engineering teams. And we'll get into sort of the specifics and sophistication of this code review agent here shortly. But not just your rigid linting rules, right? Really opinionated rules that historically have a lot of gray area. So let's keep speeding through, and then we'll get to the demo. I promise we are a couple more slides and we'll be there. The last piece here, of course, you can do is fine tuning for model personalization, right? So think of that as hard to read, poorly documented code like Spark, Verilog, Ada, COBOL, things that are hard to read and hard to work with. You can use Tabnine. You can fine tune a Tabnine model to be trained specifically on that language, and that's sort of the last leg of personalization there. So beyond sort of AI code generation and validation, it really comes in play here is coaching. Um, and that's important because any AI code assistant, even generic one or any LLM can generate code, but really Tabnine's the only one that can truly validate that code at a level of sophistication that a mature engineering enterprise would deem useful or adequate, I should say. So there was this study here that looked at GitHub projects, right, and Copilot generated code. It also examined ChatGPT and Codium. And they found on average that 31% of code snippets generated by these tools have security weaknesses. And these weaknesses were diverse and they related to about 43 different CWEs. And 8 of those CWEs were on the current 2025 top 25 list, right? So that's a problem because you can't scale code generation if you're scaling security weaknesses and technical errors and bugs, right? So again, that's how we solve this for you today is that code review agent, right? And it's very simple to train, right? You use natural language and upload a CSV file with just a bunch of roles in plain English. We analyze and that rule set and create the rest, right? So you'll see good examples, bad examples, and sort of extra parameters and info for each rule and context for each rule. You can also point Tabnine to what we say is a golden repository, right? Where your best code's being written, your best documentation, testing, so on and so forth. Tabnine can analyze and extract a rule set from that and generate you again, your own coaching rules from that repository, right? And once you've done that, you've got a code review agent that's completely customized and fine-tuned to you, right? It's going to check and read your code in the pull request directly in the IDE as well as in GitHub, right? And it's just going to end up being able to generate code that matches your standards from the get-go, even prior to the PR. Now, last but not least here, we talk about future-proofing your AI software development platform, right? And something you need to think about, right? When we give you complete control over your AI infrastructure to do that. And this is really, really important, right? Because many of our customers are developing their own LLMs. They don't want to be locked into a specific LLM or a vendor. And we've seen, with the rise of Llama and Quen and DeepSeek and Gemini, the arms race, the LLM's arms race is far from over, and you are going to want flexibility, right? So with Tabnine, you get that, right? We have deep expertise in leveraging and optimizing LLMs for software development tasks and make a variety of LLMs available to our customers out of the box, right? And this flexibility gives you 2 key benefits. You can trust that you will always have access to the latest and greatest models with Tabnine. In addition, Tabnine's deployment of these LLMs across, we deploy these LLMs across a massive array of developers and use cases, right? Which means we can provide guidance on which LLMs are the best performing and for which use cases. And then the second piece here is you have full control, not just over the models in use, but how you connect to them, right? You already have a private endpoint with a leading model provider. We support that. You're deploying your own open source model on a platform like Bedrock. We support that. You want to run Llama or Tab9 or Llama on Tab9 in an air-gapped environment. We can support that too, right? So with Tab9, you're always in complete control of your AI infrastructure. And we're also LLM agnostic, right? So you can upload and use any LLM you want with Tab9, right? So you're not locked into a specific vendor as things continue to change and the market continues to move, right? And all of that together creates a fully self-contained AI system. And again, you can deploy us however you would like: SaaS, VPC, on-prem, fully air-gapped, and you can do all of this within your single company, right? So you can have multiple deployment types based on, let's say, severity of what that team is working on. web dev team, maybe they're on SaaS, and your team that's doing really top secret work, they might be on air gap deployment, but all of which can operate off of the same team. So now that you have a good understanding of what Tabnine is, let's talk about why. Let's cap this all together. All right. We built Tabnine for mission critical engineering. That means more than just suggesting code. It means being deeply accountable to your developers, tightly aligned with your organization's standards, and protective of your most sensitive IP. So we're controlled, right? We're accountable to your devs. With Tabnine, your engineers stay in control. Our platform provides full visibility into every suggestion. It's backed by references, explanations, and validation against your standards. And nothing is shipping in Tabnine without human approval. This isn't a black box AI. This is transparent, explainable AI that engineers trust and adopt. The second piece here is it's grounded. It's onboarded into your organization, right? Tabnine doesn't just understand programming, it understands your code base, your architecture, and your guardrails. It runs inside your environment and adapts to your coding policies and practices. And it follows your policies with real-time context and enforcement. This is AI to train to think like your team, not just a generic model guessing from the outside. And the last piece here is it's secured, right? It protects that sensitive IP. Most importantly, yeah, I would say that's probably most important, right? Tabnine protects what matters most, and that's your code and your data. Our solution runs fully within your perimeter, right? And that's whether it's on-prem, air-gapped, or in a private VPC or SaaS, right? There's no external calls. There's no third-party inference, and it's just total control over your intellectual property and zero exposure to shadow AI risk, right? So this is truly what enterprise-grade AI looks like. It's controlled, it's grounded, and it's secured. And it's built for engineering teams where trust isn't optional, it's mission critical. So let's jump into the demo here. Let's see here. A couple questions. Marcus H. With coaching, can Tabnine tailor its code suggestions to reflect the latest coding practices I've implemented in my updated code base while avoiding older deprecated patterns still present in the code source or the source code? Yes, you can do that. And I can show you how that coaching agent is customized here. We'll get into that later in the demo. So we will be going through sort of each phase of the SDLC. So starting with onboarding and planning all the way through maintaining and review. But great question. Which type of AI integration does Tabnine recommend for use within an IDE environment that ensures full compliance with internal data privacy policies and regulatory requirements? I'm trying to see here. Not exactly sure which type of AI integration. What do you mean by that, Cola? If we're talking about, a deployment type, I would say, of course, that on-prem air-gapped would be my preference, and what we've seen a lot of folks in the finance and banking industry that are customers of ours, of course, go with that on-prem or air-gapped solution. But if you want to post a sort of clarifying comment here, I'd be happy to come back to this specific question. So let's jump into the meat of this. Let's get into the demo. I'm going to be shifting my screens around here a second, so just bear with me. Alrighty. So let's do entire screen. All right. Well, I think we can all see this here. Let's run it from the top. All right. So we're going to start going over first the UI, right? Because there's a lot going on here. Let me switch over to this guy. Okay. So in this case, well, let me back up here. We're going to go over the UI first that folks will interact with, right? The Tabnine UI. And then we'll cover each of the agents that we're going to find along the way, as well as sort of the different form factors or areas you'll find Tabnine within the IDE. Now, starting at the highest level, you'll probably notice here I am in VS Code, right? Now, Tabnine is IDE agnostic, right? We support all the major IDEs and we have feature parity across the board, right? So it doesn't matter if you are a VS Code or Visual Studio, an Eclipse, a NeoVim, a JetBrains family user. We have this same product in all of those IDEs. Now, starting here, when you open up your IDE on the left-hand side, you're going to see the Tabnine logo, right? Clicking that is going to open up Tabnine's AI chat. Now, starting at the top, this is where you have your switchable models dropdown, right? As a developer, these are the models that I, as the administrator, have provisioned myself, right? But as in an organization, your administrator controls which models are available to your developers within your org. For the sake of this demo, I'm going to be sticking with Claude 3.7 for today. But moving down below here, this is where you can use our natural, everyday conversational language like you're used to using. Type it in here and get back answers and code suggestions, right? Ask questions and queries, get back answers and suggestions. Now, a couple neat things here. You can use @mentions to get more specific, right? So you can reference code blocks, methods, classes, files, so on and so forth. You can also use images as context within your prompts, right? So when you're asking a query, you can, let's say, upload an ER diagram and say, help me make this into Postgres schema. And that's something that Tabnine will use as context within that specific query. Now, in between @mentions and images context, you're going to see this backslash. If you're a long-time Tabnine user, you'll recognize our agents here. These are 5 that come out of the box with Tabnine standard, right? So your explain code, generate test for code, document code, fix code, and code explore. And we'll get into what each of these do, although I think you could probably figure it out by the names. That said, next to that, you'll also find our Jira integration, right? This is where you can implement and validate Jira tickets, right? Those non-code sources of context to generate code for your application that, again, lines with your policy and standards and guidelines here at your organization. Now, above these buttons and below this querying, you have this cool new section called our context scope, right? So this is where a developer can control their scope on a query by query basis. So you can specify current file, local IDE workspace, all remote code bases, terminal, as well as even get granular with your repositories, your remote repositories or remote folders, or even remote files within those folders, within those repositories, right? So it's that complete control over every interaction, especially your querying here. Now, to the right of chat, you're going to find our test beaker, right? Or our testing agent highlighted here by this little beaker. Now, what this agent lets you do is generate comprehensive test plans for your code. And we'll get into that shortly here within the demo. But you can either start from scratch or you can reiterate on previous test plans that you have, right? Ultimately, getting you to that full test coverage or full code coverage that we all long for, but is incredibly lofty to get there, right? So moving forward, you have, or I should say, not forward into the project or files themselves. You're going to notice this edit, test, explain, document, sometimes a run debug as well. But these edit, test, explain, document, and sometimes a fix is our Tabnine code lens, right? So as you're working with your code, if you want to access those same agents that we saw down here, right, that comes standard. This is just another form factor, another way of doing so, right? And if there was something wrong, you'd see a little fix pop up here. But fortunately, there's nothing wrong yet with this application that I know of. Now, moving along here, what comes, of course, standard in Tabnine, where we started, if you will, is our code completions. So as you are, if I could type here, it would be a lot easier. As you are typing here in Tabnine, it's going to automatically recognize your intent, right? So in this case, I'm adding more useful info rules. Tabnine's going to recognize that and provide a suggestion that matches my my task at hand while adhering to my policies and guardrails. And this is the same for writing tests, writing documentation, so on and so forth. Tabnine is just going to be aware of your intent and provide those helpful suggestions along the way. Now, the last piece here is going to be our quick commands dropdown. So Command I on a MacBook, and I know that might be an issue for some of you JetBrains users, but fear not. I know that you can reroute your key bindings, so this shouldn't be an issue if you are a user there. But Command I is going to populate this drop-down menu. Now, again, very similar functionality, the same functionality you've seen before, just in a different form factor, right? Slightly more in the developer flow than going out and using the chat. And this allows you at the top, of course, to use everyday natural language to enter instructions and get responses and suggestions back. I'll also will allow you to use our quick commands, right? So those agents, the fix, document, explain, and explore, as well as determine your scope and determine your model of choice for this query. So let us start chipping through a standard sort of cycle for a software developer, right? Going through each phase of the SDLC. First, starting here with plan. And let me jump over to chat here and see if we have any questions here. All right, cool. Kula, these are good questions. I'm going to come back to these later on at the end here because I think we could spend a lot of time there. So we're going to keep moving forward. But don't worry, I did not forget about these. So let's start going through this this planning phase. So what we're going to do first here, as a developer, well, I'm going to clear out some of my extra tabs here that we don't necessarily need. Make this a little bit easier. Okay, so first things first, I just left a sprint. I need to start chipping away at tickets. I am working with my same team, but it's an unfamiliar project. So what do? How do I learn really quickly what this project is and not spend all afternoon or the latter half of the week getting onboarded? What we're going to do here is we're going to use, our Code Explorer agent, right? Now the Code Explorer agent is a built-in quick action within Tabnine chat that users can invoke when starting a conversation, right? And that's by using that / Code Explorer. Now what Tabnine chat will do is return a high-level summary of the project's key elements, how to get started, structure, how to contribute, as well as it'll provide this follow-up set of questions, allowing me as a developer to dive further into the task at hand. Excuse me. So let's see here. What are the key dependencies in this project, and how do they interact with each other? Awesome. So again, learning more and more about this application, and I'm doing it in a comprehensive way, and it's fast, right? I'm not spending time reading through all of this documentation or reading a README file. And now I have a full understanding within less than a minute of what the key structure is and how this whole project works together, right? And let's say, okay, we have an idea. This is good, but I'm really curious, let's say, about this section here. Right? Now that I have an understanding, I want to dive a little bit deeper. So what we can do is use explain code, right? Explore code is project wide. Explain code is really, I'd say, file wide at its biggest capacity. Explain code's awesome for diving deeper into specific blocks or areas of files within your larger code base, right? Giving you more granular information of the specific code snippet that you're looking at. And it'll also provide you with some follow-up questions if you want to dive deeper into that specific code block. But for the sake of this demo, we have an understanding of what this project is now, right? This is a fraud detection dashboard. We see the UI layer, we see the data layer. I understand what tools I'm using. And if we want to run it, let's just see what it looks like, right? Or maybe I have to have a terminal open first, excuse me. New terminal, npm run dev. Oh, well, I don't remember the color palette being this ugly, but here we go, right? Tabnine also doesn't just provide code suggestions. It's also going to give you terminal commands as well, right? So, okay, this is our fraud detection dashboard. It looks like it's designed by the state of Florida, but that's all right. Let's keep moving forward. So we have an understanding. We know how it works together. Let's go on to create. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do one of our Jira tickets, right? And this is used via our Jira agent. And this allows us to pull in context from Jira for generation, as well as then use that same context from those tickets, as well as our code base for validation, right? So let's jump back over to my Jira board for a second here. Now, a couple things to note. Oof, 60 to-dos, right? There's a lot of tickets here on this board, but specific to me as a user, there's only 16 to-dos. Clearly, I haven't been very productive here on this team, but I digress. There's 16 tickets that are attached to my name. Now, what's interesting is I'm here in tab 9. I initialized this Jira component or agent. I only see 3. Why is that? Well, tab 9 is only going to show the tickets that are assigned to me, my individual user, that is integrated with tab 9 in Jira. And then it's also only going to show me the tickets that have been active within the last 30 days, right? So what we're going to do here is we'll do the brand design v4. And just to make sure this is the right ticket, let me see. Explain the ticket. I want to know what is in the description before implementing the code. I also had that highlighted here, so we might have thrown something off, but let's see here. Awesome. Okay. Purple and blue. Not great, but better than green and orange. What are the references? All right, awesome. So let's work on implementing this ticket now. That way I know what's in it and we pick the right one. Say implement this ticket. Cool. So the first thing it's going to do, I always forget about this, is I have this custom behavior set in Tabnine to follow TDD. And a quick tangent here from our path of following the SDLC, I'm going to quickly touch on what are custom behaviors, right? Custom behaviors, one of my favorite areas of the product. If you've seen these office hours before, you know how passionate I am about this section. But custom behaviors to me is a way that fundamentally changes how Tabnine interacts with every developer, right? It's a unprecedented amount of or level of customization that we give each and every dev the availability to use or the ability to use, right? So for me, I have it now follow, call me by my name. Sometimes I was a little silly and you can have it call you whatever you want, to be quite frank. But I also have it follow dry and solid principles. I have it follow TDD, perform logging, entry and exit statements when available or appropriate. Answer first with a unit test, right? So it's following all of these rules here that you'll see in chat, right? But again, it has that ability to fundamentally change the way that it interacts with your developers. You could also use that to localize Tabnine as well. So we're in the tech space. Crazy to think that remote companies don't exist, right? Or that aren't a majority of us, I think, work for a remote company or a company that has people that have global teams, right? So this allows you to localize that for every developer around the globe who's using Tabnine. And it allows for English and non-English characters. So from Chinese to German to heck, Marathi to English, right? And it understands all of them, right? And allows you to have that support for developers across the globe. Let's keep moving forward here. So we need to add this unit test. Great. We're going to add that here. Now, when I click apply, Tab9 is going to show me the diff, gives me the ability to have a human review, and then I can accept those changes. Now, what is cool about apply, and I move so quickly here, so apologies. Apply inserts this code exactly where it should be. Doesn't matter your cursor location. It doesn't matter your open file. It will take that code snippet as we just saw. I was on dashboard, opened up dashboard test.tsx and added that code exactly where it should be within this file here. Next up, we want to implement these changes, right? So this looks good. We're going to add a new color here. Let's apply those changes. Sweet. And let's update that top nav bar. Awesome. Now, if we go back, let's just see the explanation, sidebar background color change, text readability, references, cool. Because it's using TDD, right? It's going to use that test as a reference to help me build my next code. Awesome. Now, if we go back over here, let's just take a quick update. Yeah. Better, not great, but better than the Florida themed fraud guard. Awesome. All righty. So we've added this code. The explanation is there. Now we can do one final step, and let's validate this. Validate this ticket. Sweet. So we are passing with flying colors for a majority of this, but we have some areas that need further verification, right? And this is important. Um, it's a good thing, right? It's good that it didn't just push it through and say, "Oh yeah, it looks perfect. Everything's good to go." Right? There were specific acceptance criteria, right? And pieces of my description that called out the need for human testing, right? Things that can't be done by tab 9, right? So I need to go in and I need to test these changes across different browsers to assure consistency. I need to make sure that this is verified before I can push my PR, right? Or commit these code changes. And then there's some additional observations as well, and then a recommendation. And then, of course, everything is done with giving you references. Nothing's done in a black box. It all has full transparency into the changes it's making and why it's making those changes and where it got the context for those changes. Now, one last piece on the topic of creating is let's talk about provenance and attribution because I think that's powerful. We're going to show how this works in real time, right? So we'll say, show me how to initialize an open telemetry tracer provider. Use Go as the sample. So, let me see here. Yeah, it should be okay. All right. First, we're following that TDD unit test first. Now it's going to generate us the code for this open telemetry tracer provider. Now, what you'll notice here is at the end of this code generation, we should see a attribution icon at the bottom. And what this does is, and we'll get into those references because that's cool here. Boom. Okay. So do we have 2 or just 1? All right. So gray, if it was grayed out, attribution, right? To back it up for folks who weren't here, it's a feature in tab 9 that when an LLM generates code, it's going to look at all publicly visible code and generate any or the source code that matches, as well as the license type that's associated with that source code. If it's permissive, you're going to see attribution in gray. If it's non-permissive licenses that are being detected, you're going to see that attribution in orange. Now, upon going in and looking, you can see specifically what licenses are here within this code snippet or suggestion. Now, moving forward, we are going to have some awesome UI updates that are going to make this a little bit easier, a lot of it easier to read, right? Bucketing by just license type, and then you can see the source code or the number of references per license, right? But we can see here, this is, there's MPL, there's some AGPL3s, excuse me, ones that I don't really want in my code base. Apache, MIT, great, right? Now, as a developer, I have an exponentially more informed decision I can make, right? Where I now understand the ramifications of bringing this code in, right? I understand what licenses are attached to this. And then, as we said earlier, we'll be soon able to implement censorship, which as an administrator, I can say, I don't want to have any AGPL 3.0 or GPL 2.0 licenses or any Apache 2.0 licensed code being brought in. So all of this will be blocked out and new code will just be generated that doesn't have any of these licenses attached to it, right? So it's that high level scalable organizational uh, governance, right? That you can be in control of when it comes to this licensing and compliance space. Now, let us continue to move on to testing. So we're going to jump back over here to this password generator and let's open up this guy. So two areas. First, we're going to show what it looks like to generate from scratch, right? We're just going to generate a test plan from something we already have. So you'll go over to the testing agent here, right? And this is located within Tabnine chat agent. Next to chat icon, you'll find the test beaker. Test beaker lets you generate comprehensive test plans for your code. First thing that's going to tell you to do is select the code that you want to test. So we will do password.java. We're going to hit continue. Now you're coming to a fork in the road, right? You either have a test file or you don't. If you don't have a test file, Tabnine is going to create a new one for you, and you can customize that path here. If you do have a test file, you can browse and find it from the dropdown. In this case, we're going to use password test.java. Now, what you'll notice is that there's already a handful of tests here in this file. As we find or notice with a lot of our customers, right? They're not going from 0 to 1. They're more likely going from 1001 to 1002. They already have some form of testing sometimes implemented, right? So it's about reiterating and building on top of that, right? And empowering these folks to sort of build upon their current test plan, right? To supercharge it. So we'll hit, I do have a test file. We'll hit continue. Now it's going to generate us this test plan. Now, if we were starting from scratch, it would give us these import statements at the top, right? Just as a sort of template to build off of. But those are already there. Now, what's neat and what's something to call out here is that Tabnine is aware of our current tests, right? It's taken and using our existing text as context. And then it's going to build a new set of test cases that are nothing like the ones that we currently have. And that's going to allow you as a developer or you folks as Q&A teams or testing teams to be able to achieve that full test coverage or that full code coverage exponentially faster than historically you've ever been able to do so, right? And with way less headaches and pain than you previously have experienced. And from a engineering leadership POV, this is a way to ensure that you're not producing garbage, right? And that everything that is being produced by your team is being properly vetted and will match your organization's policies, right? And it's as simple as going through and let's say we let's find a good one. We'll do this guy here. Now, clicking on this plain English description is going to populate the test. You can also then modify this test, right? Change from weak password to strong password. And Tabnine will then regenerate that test, but fine-tuned or polished to the way that you have described below. And then it's as simple as just clicking apply, and Tabnine will insert that test case exactly where it should be within our test file here. Although it is taking its sweet time right now. I think that's probably because I have so many files open right now. So moving forward, oh, I think we did actually get that there at the bottom. Yep, there we go. Awesome. And then you can just rinse and repeat for any test that you would like, right? So if you find this one works for you and doesn't require any sort of polishing, again, it's as simple as just clicking apply, and we'll insert that within this test file. Again, exactly where it should be, regardless of cursor location or open file. Perfect. Awesome. So moving forward here, we have created, we've onboarded, then created, we've tested. Now let's document, right? Which I guess we probably should have done prior to doing our testing to make sure everything works correctly, but that's okay. What we're going to do here is we'll show a handful of ways you can test with Tabnine. First being is just using our code lens, right? It's located at the top of each block of code within Tabnine. Clicking documentation is plainly going to just generate documentation that matches your way of writing docs within your organization. You can accept those changes there. Whoops, not sure exactly what happened. Let me switch out of this one. Maybe we're getting some issues there. All right, so we'll just jump into this one and we'll show a different way of generating documentation. Everybody loves a live demo, especially when you have small bugs. So let's do one of our built-in agents. We'll do document code, right? So this will prompt you to highlight the code that you want to document. Running this document code command here will then give you the code suggestion, the code snippet for this. Then we can just insert this exactly where we want it, right? And you'll see that now we have documentation that's specific to this block of code that also follows my my organization's way of writing docs, right? There's a specific markdown file here that outlines exactly how my org should be writing docs, where you'll see these at mentions as well as examples. And then as we've been creating documentation, you'll find that every doc, wherever that one just was, has examples, has these at mentions, and is referencing those project guidelines marked down. So let's see here. The last piece we'll talk about is maintaining, right? You'll want to continue to improve and maintain your application, and Tabnine can be a really good source of ideas for you to do that, right? Or it can help you do that. So in this case, let's go to our Java platform. When it comes to modernization and refactoring, for example, we can say, what version of Java is this code written in? Java 11, right? Okay, so this is an older version of Java. Now, even more so, we can say, how can I refactor this project to a PHP code instead of Java? And Tabnine will then help you create sort of a plan and provide all the steps necessary for converting and let's say modernizing this application to take it from an old Java application to a newer PHP application, right? Now, one thing to note, you'll notice that my responses are quite lengthy and also quite comprehensive. That is because I have this turned on to comprehensive within our settings section. So Tabnine gives folks the opportunity to customize, a lot, right? To really make it fine-tuned to every developer. Part of that is giving folks the ability to have short and sweet to the point responses, or to have comprehensive educational responses. I prefer the latter. Some folks prefer the former, but it is up to your choice. And then you can see here, yeah, we have a full overview of exactly how we can convert all of this code, all of my project files as well, and then how to get the actual project to run. So this is sort of, say, like the basic steps, right? From onboarding, planning, creating, documenting, testing, maintaining, and fixing. The last piece here we'll go over is code review, right? So let's jump over into our admin panel. Now this is our coaching agent, right? And the coaching agent comes preloaded in Tabnine with a few thousand rules, right? A lot more than the buckets you see here. Now, what we also sort of push and promote here is customizing this, right? Importing your own rule set. And one thing we believe heavily in at Tabnine is that you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach to AI, especially code review. It just does not work, right? So we encourage folks to import your own rule set. As we highlighted earlier within the demo or the slides, you can do that a handful of ways. You can upload a simple CSV sheet, right, with plain English descriptions. Think something as simple, it doesn't even have to be this complex, right? But something as simple as this description in Tabnine will ingest and create the rest, right? It'll add good examples, bad examples, IDs, severity, so on and so forth, right? So you can do it that way. You can also point Tabnine to what we call a golden repo, where you have your best code being developed and maintained. We'll extract a rule set from that, and then ultimately what you have is now a fine-tuned, customized to your organization code review agent, right? And again, this allows you to codify that institutional knowledge that embodies your best developers, your best engineering managers, your CTOs, your CIOs, your CISOs, right? And augment that and make it on demand for every developer who's using Tabnine at your organization. That's wildly powerful, right? It allows devs to have code review on demand. They can do it however many times they like. Code review is not a bottleneck. It becomes educational again. And truthfully, the code review agent can't get annoyed with you and tell you, hey, you've sent me 15 of these in the last 24 hours, which is something that your human counterparts might get annoyed with, right? So this is again, your coaching agent, right? This is your rule set. Now, what does this look like in the IDE? Well, let's go into our password generator here, and let's run tabnine review repository. Now, what Tabnine is doing, or has done, is sent all of these changes, right? All of my changes I've made since my last commit out, for review. And it's going to take these files and it's going to compare them against this rule set. And it's going to flag any issues or deviations or violations against my code, and then provide revisions, right? All happening way prior to me submitting my PR, right? Or giving this code to my code reviewer. So we'll go back in and we will say tabnine review report -- last. And now we have our code review back. So there's three. We're operating at 50% here, so it has issues with a handful of my files, but not all, which is good. So you can see here, it shows the file, it shows the violation, the line, the to-do, the description, the rule ID, and then the code to insert to fix that issue, right? And you'll see that it does this for each violation. Now we can take it a step further here, and we can go in and let's add terminal as context. And we'll say, help me implement / fix the changes, issues found in code review within the terminal. And now Tabnine is going to use this terminal as context. It's going to use my code base and workspace as context. And it's going to generate relevant code that, again, matches my policies, my guidelines, guardrails, compliance. And it's going to generate code that's going to fix these issues. And this is all happening long before it gets to my code reviewer. So I'm not going to get slapped on the wrist. Code review is still going to be enjoyable, and it's still going to be educational. And we can also see where it's referencing code here as well. And then again, it's as simple as just clicking apply and going through and fixing each of these issues. And then you'll run this again, and none of these issues will be found, and you'll have an easy breezy PR. Your code reviewer will be very thankful. But more importantly, you're going to stop pushing garbage into code review that violates your organization's policies and compliance and standards, right? That's the more important piece. And every developer is going to have this sort of these scalable guardrails that they can run in. Every developer in your org who's using Tabnine. So let's jump back over for one final piece here, and that's a PR. So I'm a code reviewer. I have a team of engineers. Josh just submitted his PR to me, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to review his code. And this is what I would see from a code reviewer's lens, right? So going through his PR, I can see the issue that he had, the code in question, the rule that was violated, and then the to-do. And I can also see the severity of this issue. And that's going to be the same for every issue within this PR. I can also commit the suggestion or add comments and have a conversation with Josh based on these issues we found in the code. And then, of course, Tabnine is going to provide a PR report at the bottom, right? So it's going to highlight the issues or no issues found within your PR. Helpful for lengthy PRs. This one is obviously quite short with only 3 issues, but this does provide a nice high-level overview for folks. Now, just to add some extra clarity here, because I know we've been going for a minute here, and then I'll tackle some of these questions that I see in chat. The difference between code review and linting, right? Because I think there's often some confusion. Since we've seen linting tools for so long, we've been so familiar with them or used them for the last, 20 years or so. It's easy to get confused, right? So a linting tool is relatively fixed. It checks code against generic predefined rules and patterns, primarily focusing on style, syntax, and basic logic issues, right? So think of it as like a strict grammar checker that follows a rigid rule book. In contrast, Tabnine's code review agent is more like this experienced senior engineer who understands your team's specific context and preferences, right? So let's say the first big difference is that, again, it understands your code base, your patterns, your organization's unique standards, right? And it can identify code that doesn't align with how your team specifically writes software. Key point, even if that code is technically correct, right? We talked about this earlier on this call. If I were to ask the 68 of you that I can see on the call right now, if to give me a solution to an engineering problem, you'd probably give me 68 different answers. And the issue is that they're all correct, right? But the only one that really is going to make it into production is the one that's correct for your organization, that follows your specific patterns and guides and rules, right? That's the level of sophistication that of enforcement you can get within the code review agent, right? it can tackle those gray areas that historically have been difficult because they're very opinionated, right? Customization depth is another area. The code review agent can be coached, right, through plain language instructions on your team's preferences and standards. You can explain complex architectural principles or business logic in the code review agent that you want it to enforce. And linting primarily offers configuration through like technical rules or like regex patterns with like very limited ability to understand high level concepts. The next piece would be that sort of feedback quality, right? So the code review agent provides a very detailed explanation of issues and suggested improvements, and can even generate code that fixes while maintaining consistency with your existing patterns. And linting offers usually a brief predefined error message and a basic fix suggestion, right? So think of it sort of like the LLM and like generic LLM or black box LLM and Tabnine, right? That same sort of relationship with linting and our code review agent. It knows standard basic rules, right? But anything above that, right, when it gets to complex enterprise level management, right, or rules, it really struggles, right? So the code review agent really for those mature enterprise engineering teams with a really complex set of rigid rules they have to follow. So the last sort of piece here I'll go over is sort of the settings section. I'll tackle some of these questions here. Let's see here. Guillermo, I'd like to know the limit for code generations. I'm working with code bases that may be over 1,000 lines long. I'm asking because I'm new at coding. I promise you, Guillermo, you are not going to run into any limitations of the code generation, especially over 1,000 lines of long. We have folks who have millions and millions of lines in their repositories who Tabnine, they use Tabnine to eat that repo for breakfast. It does very, very well. We even tell folks, especially when you get into that, like for example, fine tuning range, have a few million lines of code, right? 3-5 million. It will handle it even better, right? Adds more context. So I encourage you to not worry about the limitations or context windows or things of that nature. There aren't any tokens here in Tabnine, so you don't have to worry about doing too many queries or iterating or testing different prompts. Feel free to just go nuts. And it's okay. Don't worry about the noob at coding. There's no such thing in these sessions as a bad question. The only bad questions are the questions that you folks don't ask. All right, so the last little piece here that I will show you folks. Let me see. So this was something I wanted to bring up earlier. We talk about code-based connection, right? The idea that Tabnine is understanding and aware of organizational level context, right? Not just what's in currently open on your screen or what's currently open in your workspace, right? When code-based connections turned on, Tabnine will look for contextually relevant results or code suggestions or snippets that are in repositories that are just connected within Tabnine's ecosystem, right? And again, that's any Git-based repo. GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab. We now offer support for Perforce, that's a big one for some of you enterprise users. But when it provides you these references, it'll even use remote context if necessary, right? And clicking on this will open exactly where it is Tabnine's pulling that context from, the specific area of code within that file, within that repository. And clicking on that reference will lead you directly to this highlighted block. Again, just providing that extended transparency and visibility. That's something, again, we believe very, very heavily on here at Tabnine. I've harped on it a lot this week, harped on it pretty much last few months. Every session pretty much is the transparency. Right, that's something that is huge here at Tabnine. It's not a black box AI. It's not doing things autonomously or blindly without you or your developers knowing. Everything is done with the idea that a human is going to be in the loop and going to be confirming or denying these changes, as well as then providing that human with the transparency on where every interaction has come from. Right? What is the context for every interaction? Where is Tabnine pulling this data from or getting this data from? And let's see, last little piece here. Keep saying last little piece, but I promise this is the last little piece. Is the settings section. Folks that know me know I love the settings of Tabnine. Historically, not a very sexy area of any product. With Tabnine is the complete opposite. This is where you can really fundamentally change the way that Tabnine operates for you and your devs. Starting with response length, concise or comprehensive. Below that, you have custom behaviors. Again, the ability to high level determine how Tabnine is going to interact with you as a developer. And then you have custom commands, right? Sort of these agentic flows or these similar to your documentation agent, right? Sort of lets you create your own custom agents, if you will, or custom commands within Tabnine, right? And these can range from very simple commands like, give me educational resources based on the code that I'm writing, right? So if it sees I'm working in a REST API, I can run this command to provide me more info, like some sort of documentation or product docs. You can even get much more complex, right? Where it's going to scan my POM file, review the dependency versions, and see if there's any known vulnerabilities, and then update those dependencies based on that review. I'll give you an example, actually. Let's jump over there. Run this command. So you can see here, Tabnine is going to review that POM file and then scan for any updates, provide me with that info, and then give me a full version update of that POM XML. Now, this is sort of, again, just scratching the surface. We have folks to get the juices flowing here creatively for you folks on the call. As far as what you can do with this, we have a customer, for example, that uses custom commands when generating tests. So they have, let's say, a piece of hardware that they build, right? Or they build different pieces of hardware. And for each piece of hardware, they have, let's call it 500 tests that they have to run that hardware through. So they have a sample testing file or template with a bunch of boilerplate code, right? 500 different tests that hardware has to go through. They have a custom command that uses the selected code, this new component, this new hardware. It references this test file, right, with all of these boilerplate test code in it. And then it creates a new test file for this piece of hardware using those 500 tests, right? So you think about historically how long that would take a developer to do. And we look at it today and it's seconds, a minute, as opposed to hours, right? And then you can make sure that every single component or piece of hardware that you're pushing or sending out, in this case, let's say a semiconductor manufacturer is building, you can ensure that you have that scalable testing for every component, right? And you can do it in an incredibly efficient manner that you historically haven't had the ability to do. So that will sort of be, I think that takes everything I wanted to talk about today. Let me go back in here to the questions. Let's see some folks. Can it look at schema and code in a remote database? Yes, it can. You can ask Tabnine, for example, to uh, tell me what is in this external repository. So let me find an example here. Bear with me. Sorry, just trying to find a good example here. Let me go to, let's see, if we do codebase, remote codebase, let's do cars telemetry. And let's say, how, whoops, how should please analyze the cars telemetry app and from the external repository linked below and explain the purpose and contents. So this isn't something that has schema, for example. Like, I guess, well, it's not like it does have schema. It's not like an SQL schema. But I hope this sort of answers your question, right? So you can go in, you can specify, let's say, the external repository I want to look at. It'll go through and it'll read that without ever having to leave and go to that specific GitHub or Bitbucket or GitLab. But then it'll also provide you with those references as well for you to be able to go in and look at the code that it is referencing or explaining, right? So in this case, this cars telemetry project, it's going to provide the references where it was explaining this code and where it got this information from. So, but to answer your question, yes, you can look at schema and code in a remote code base. You can also ask follow-up questions and sort of dive deeper and deeper into this or within the specific query. You'll be called from the IDE. Okay. So can a PR review be called up from the IDE plugin? In the example, you did it from the terminal. Yes. So we are very, very, very close to releasing a very, very exciting and, in my opinion, very UI friendly code review within the IDE plugin itself, right? So soon you will have it actually within chat as well. So you'll have it in the PR, you'll have it within the terminal, and very shortly in the near future, you will have it within Tabnine's AI chat as well. So if it's stored in a Postgres database, this might be a limitation of my own knowledge, Jacob. It's a good question. I don't believe so. Um, if I guess if you had a Postgres database hosted on GitHub or Bitbucket or and your Git-based repo, and you had Postgres on there, or you had an SQL schema within that repo, yeah, it would be able to read that database and provide you information pertaining to that code. I just do not currently have a sort of Postgres DB or one that is available at a demo or uploaded within this Tabnine environment. But a good call out and something I can do for a future session. So come back and ask me that question in a couple weeks. Any further questions here? We'll leave it running for a few more minutes here. I know we've had another long session, almost 2 hours today. So appreciate everyone's attendance. Appreciate the folks that have engaged and asked some good questions. It's always appreciated. But I'll stay on here for another few minutes, and if there's anything else that we want to talk or go over, just put it in the chat. If not, I will see you folks back here next week. Again, we do all of these sessions on a weekly basis. We rotate between 7 a.m. PT and 10:30 a.m. PT. So if you think of any questions in the meantime, do not fret. This is not the last time you will see my face. I'll be back here same time next week, 3 hours later. If there aren't any questions, we can wrap this up. So thank you folks for joining, staying along. It's always a pleasure chatting with the folks here on this call. And if you need me or need anything from me, have any questions, things that you wish you saw in the demo, areas that you want to dive deeper, if you're curious about some of the research I talked about earlier in this session, feel free to add me on LinkedIn, shoot me a ping. I am a message away. We'll see you folks next week. Cheers.